Hi, everyone. I'm Becky Farrell, Research Lead and Programming Consultant for Dance Data Project. Our series, Moving Forces, Motherhood and Dance, is composed of rapid-fire conversations with mothers in varying roles in the dance field. Today, I'm so excited to be joined by the fabulous Morgan McEwen, founder, artistic director, and choreographer of MorDance. So, Morgan, hi, welcome.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm so glad you're with us today. So, rapid fire, let's just get right into it. So, at what point in your career did you become a mother?
At the global pandemic phase. And it was, I had already kind of decided that I was phasing out of my career as a performer. And I think, things obviously changed for a lot of us with the pandemic. Yeah. I did come back and I danced a little bit in the end of 2021, but it was sort of at that juncture of me switching from being a dancer to being a full-time choreographer director.
Yeah. So during this time, I'm sure there's a number of barriers, right? Internally, externally, with becoming a mother during that time frame. But were there some specific barriers that you kind of encountered during this time?
I think for me, I was in my 30s when my husband and we decided to start a family. I think for me, growing up in the ballet community, I had my first job at 17. I think the biggest barrier for me was that I didn't see other dancers really having children. There was maybe a dancer here, a dancer there. Later on, when I moved to the Met Opera, I saw more dancers having children. But for me, I feel like there was such, not a stigma, but just this apprehension to have a child. I think the dance community, there's so much control around what our bodies look like as women. And, you don't feel like you have a voice really. And I think a lot of ballet companies, there's sort of this lack of communication between dancers and artistic directors. And if you're going into having a baby, it's your whole world, so you need to have a community around you that is supporting of that massive lifestyle change. And I think, the biggest barrier for me, maybe I would have had children younger, maybe not, I don't know, hindsight, but I think if the community and the mentality around women, around our bodies, around us having a voice within the ballet industry were different, I think it would be different. I think there would be more women having babies. And I think that's really the biggest barrier, or was the biggest barrier maybe for me. Now I'm sort of in that leadership role, not sort of, I am in a leadership role.
Yes, absolutely.
So I think it's different. I'm trying to rewrite what that script looks like for my company. And as I'm working with other people, trying to really have a voice and be assertive in what my needs are as a mom.
That's incredible. And that's what we really need, right? Are those resources and support systems. So yeah. I know that you're creating these now, but anything in the those resources, support systems that were helpful to kind of help you through this motherhood journey?
Yes and no. Right. Again, I was really transitioning out of being a dancer. I did perform about 5 months postpartum, which was really hard. I was traveling. The pandemic was still a real thing. Yeah. So, traveling and pumping and dealing with all of that and performing at the same time was really challenging. But again, I was freelancing, so I was able to kind of craft my own schedule, which was really nice. But I think, again, as a dance community, we need to embrace parents, moms and fathers more. And, for me, I think about my company long term, and, we rent studio space from other companies right now. But if and when we have our own space, to do things like have a room that's for kids, if parents need to bring their child to work, or, a child has to come after school or whatever it is, I think just making the environment more conducive to having kids around. I also think communication is key. And I think, I've looked at people that I've worked with throughout the trajectory of my career, and I think there's a real breakdown in communication between a lot of artistic directors and dancers, or, ballet staff and dancers. But as a choreographer now, I'm finding that I'm just speaking up and I'm like, you know what, this is what I need. I'm very lucky that, I'm in that position. I'm not a dancer anymore. And I think dancers feel like they can't speak up or they can't speak out because they worry that they are going to jeopardize their job. I spoke up for one time in my career and I did lose my job. So I think that's a big reality for women in the dance community. I'm really lucky that we had a residency last year and they said, bring your daughter, bring your family, bring whoever you need, which is incredible with Vineyard Arts Project. I'm choreographing on BalletX in May and they're like, bring your daughter, bring your family, whatever you need. So and I did a piece for Iglevsky Ballet back in the fall. And, Josephine had to come with me one day to the studio and everyone was very accommodating. So I do think things are changing, but I think there's more.
Always more work to be done, right? Always. So you mentioned support system for, parents of multiple genders. So my next question is really, how can we encourage and support partners, particularly those that are male identifying and playing a more equal role in parenting? I mean, I've said in other interviews, this is always pretty tricky, especially in the early motherhood. I'm sure that the partners want to be able to do more.
Oh yeah, totally.
But it's very hard.
When we're on like 3 hours of sleep and
they're like, what can we do to help? And you're like exhausted and don't even know what to say. So are there other like ways that we can encourage a little more equalally when it comes to that?
I think like you said, look, at the first year, if you're breastfeeding is so hard, but I think it so much boils down to communication when you have a child, because if you're not communicating with the people around you, your child's not going to feel like they can communicate with you. And I'm big on treating my daughter like she's, a normal human and that I can communicate with her. So I want her to see that example between, my husband and me and my coworkers. So I think it's communicating, it's asking for help. I think as dancers, we're so programmed, like, I'm going to do this thing on my own and it's going to be perfect and I don't need any help. And I think as a mom, it's been training myself to like do away with that. And when I need help, to say to my husband, like, you got to do X, Y, and Z for me. And again, it's just that communication. And I think just trying to find balance, and it's hard. It changes every day. My husband had been work from home and now his office is like, you've got to come in 3 days a week. And, our schedule was so set for the school year. So it's like trying to figure out like, you do Tuesday drop off. I do, so it's constantly evolving, but I think so much of it is just communication and asking for help when you need it as a mom, because we've got the weight of the world on our shoulders,
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I love that it keeps coming back to communication. We've actually heard that in other sessions also with this, like, just keep talking, asking for what you need, like taking the help where you can. I think that's something that is tricky for us as dancers, right?
So hard.
I need help, or yes, I will take this. So we're all learning through this process. So in that, are there additional ways that companies, venues, and dance service organizations can advocate and support moms? What can we keep doing?
I think what you guys are doing is incredible. I think giving moms a platform to have a voice, to communicate. I have been a member of American Guild of Musical Artists forever. I think to have more representation from parents, maybe on the union. I think having, parental representation in leadership levels is so important. Because I do feel like we're underrepresented in the dance community. So I think giving us more of a voice is really important. And even just in consulting, for dance organizations, theaters, ballet companies to say, hey, like, what do you think about this as a parent? Because I know, a lot of the people I've worked for aren't parents, and not that they don't understand, but I think a lot of times it takes you being in the trenches and, like so much conversation is happening in society today that's wonderful, but about representation. And I think everyone needs a voice at the table. I mean, when Rihanna stepped onto the stage at the Super Bowl, I was like, yes, like I need to see a mom on stage. I haven't seen that. So I think giving parents a voice in decision-making for these organizations is really important.
That's awesome. That's great. Thank you so much, Morgan. Oh my gosh. And thank you to everyone that's watching. We'll have more Moving Forces interviews headed your way soon. Thanks. This has been awesome.
Thanks, Becky. This was great.